Hi, welcome to Humanity, the Human-Shaped Learning video podcast. I'm Scott.
Yes, I'm Sharla.
And glad to have you back for another episode. This happens to be my episode, Sharla.
Yes, I'm excited. I haven't looked at anything yet.
Oh,
I want to
that's
be
great.
surprised.
It's all fresh. This is guaranteed 100% fresh. Nothing stale in this conversation.
Just like the outdoors.
Just like the outdoors. Yes, we also happen to be in my backyard, just behind my house. It is really nice. It happens to be a really nice day. There's a little bit of smoke in the air, but not too bad. Not too bad. Our thoughts go out to all those folks that are having, and on a serious note, the fires that are happening. And my goodness, it makes me thankful for the people that are getting out there and really helping with that.
Yes,
Every time. What was it that Mr. Rogers said? Whenever
look for the helpers.
Yes, whenever there's a problem, look for the helpers, which is just awesome. And I happen to be drinking my coffee from my Mr. Rogers mug right here. And
that mug.
It's my favorite. It's
you have
really,
a shirt like that too.
I
don't
do.
you?
It's a hoodie.
A hoodie.
It's a hoodie. A little too warm for the hoodie today.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Well, today, like I said, this is my episode, which just means that I picked out the third thing in the article. But we're going to be talking about relationships, and I'm really excited. I've found some things that I really am excited about, and so we'll just relationships are kind of important to you, aren't they?
Very.
Yeah.
Probably more important than most everything else.
That's what I thought. That's kind of what I thought. And you know what? I think there's a what would we call that? Misunderstanding, or maybe a cliche, or that's not what I'm looking for. But about that being more of a female thing than a male thing. But I think that's not true.
I hope it's not true.
I think relationships are a human thing, and I think I recognize that women sometimes display that in a different way than men do. But I think the value of relationship and the importance of relationship is there across the board.
I think it also has to do with personality. You know, I tend, for myself, I'm an ENFP.
Right.
Myers-Briggs. And a number 2 on the...
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. It's the... it's that other one that Richard Rohr does a lot with.
Something.
Enneagram.
Enneagram. Oh my gosh.
Number 2.
I can't believe that just slipped out.
Yeah.
Anyway, a 2 on that. And I tend to be very concerned about how our interaction is going.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll probably hold back on something that I feel if I feel like my sharing is going to create a real problem for you.
Right.
Because this is more important to me than me getting to say exactly what I want to say.
Right.
And there's good and there's bad. There's that light and shadow.
Sure, there's that light and shadow. We talked about that in the last episode because, the stereotype, that was the word I was looking for earlier.
We're really struggling today.
I'm struggling today. It's something in my coffee. Or maybe I need something in my coffee.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, but the stereotype is that a lot of times men become combatant. You know, it's like they're vying for whose argument's gonna win out. And there's good and bad in that as well.
Right.
Okay, there's a time to make an argument. There's a time to make a case. There's a time to argue a case. There's a time when justice needs to be served, and you got to step up with that. But every interaction, every relationship is not who's coming out on top. Quite often, it is by choice. I want to come out on underneath, because what I want to do is I want to lift somebody else up. I want to hold somebody else who needs to be lifted up, who is not being heard or who is not being appreciated. I want to appreciate them. I want to hear them, and I want to lift them up. And so there's both of those. But anyway, we're going to get into the third thing now. So this is, once again, a poem. We've said, the third things we talked about before, they're kind of maybe a more, I don't know if artistic, aesthetic way of entering into the theme. Okay, sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it might be a song, it might be a photograph, a picture, could be a video, but it's a way of entering into the conversation that's not as much that linear, kind of PowerPointy kind of thing. So anyway, we're gonna take a look at a poem, and this poem is by her name is Meera Ostrom, and she is a social worker. And I want to pull that up on the screen for you. There's a nice photograph there of the toes of some shoes. Shoes is the name of the poem. Shoes. You put yourself into the shoes of another, trying to see the world just as they see it. Your new shoes are a kid's size 2. Every side serves as a home to rips and holes. The soles have been destroyed. Your new shoes are 2 sizes too small for the feet that inhabit them. What can you do? Your shoes are spotless, but they are too big. Deep pain fills your heart for the pain of the boy who lives in those shoes. Your life has never seen this pain, but you can't take it from him. Dedicate your life to better others. So this really jumped out at me because, we kind of throw out that phrase, you need to walk in somebody else's shoes, or you stand in somebody else's shoes, or these are big shoes to fill, or, we throw that around a lot. But there's some real depth in thinking about the fact that, shoes are so unique to every individual, okay? Because not only do they represent the size and the shape of an individual's foot, but they also, especially when they've been around for a little while, they represent the struggle, the pain, the difficulty, the travel, the experiences that they've been through. And those are things that, as much as we say, I need to stand in your shoes for a while, I'm not even sure. I think it's a good thing to want to do, but I think this poem points out, I'm not sure if it's possible.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Even if you sat and listened thoroughly to a story and you tried to place yourself there, your entire life experience is different.
Right.
So no matter what, as I'm taking in this information, as we sit and visit today about this goes to a different place in me than it goes to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's our life experience is completely different.
Right.
This did make me think of something, though.
Oh, yeah.
As I got old enough where I was wearing about the same size shoe as my mom,
Mm-hmm.
I can remember borrowing her shoes a couple times, like if I had to dress up or something, because I didn't really have dressy shoes. And that was back in the day when we wore like pantyhose and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, right.
People don't really do that anymore. But I can remember putting on her shoes and how weird it would feel to have my foot in her shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Because, normally you put on your shoes and they just sort of fit you like a glove,
Boom.
And I would feel that space here or this snugness here. And I just was thinking about that the other day.
Yeah.
How it was something that I kind of liked doing it. I felt grown up, like slipping her shoes on for a little while. But I didn't want to stay in them for very long.
Yeah.
They weren't mine.
They weren't yours. They weren't conformed to your feet. That makes me think about something, and I hope I don't go too far afield on this. And I do want to make sure we stay on this idea of relationships, but I think we'll work around to it. It seems like today, I'm going to talk about, I think both men and women's shoes. I think today comfort and usability, are really a premium. I mean, I do think that we have, when you look at shoes, there's a lot of things that are very comfortable, and there are a lot of things that are like built to go hiking, or built to go running, or built to do this, and in the most comfortable way. I don't think that that's the way it was in the past. A lot of times, when I look at my, like people in my grandparents' generation, I look at their shoes, and I think, okay, these shoes, men's and women's, these are designed to make a particular social statement primarily, because other than that, they're horribly uncomfortable. And the reason I know that is I've known a number of older, and I don't want to sound gender unequal, but a number of older women who lived their lives wearing shoes that made their toes just, and you think, what does that say? I am going to put myself into this thing that says what I think it should say, that says something about me that I'm supposed to say, that puts me in a place where I'm supposed to be according to what everybody around thinks. And it deforms my feet. It deforms who I am by trying to conform to this, this thing.
I have a personal story about something like that.
Please.
I can remember going back to my growing up years, and this is going to age me a little bit probably, but I can remember we just passed Labor Day not too long ago. Yeah. That was the day that we switched our shoes and purses to black.
Oh, right, sure, yeah.
And then on Memorial Day, or maybe it was Memorial Day. I was going to say maybe Easter, but depending on when it fell, you switched to white.
Yeah.
And back in those days, your dress shoes, you had like a pair of shiny black shoes and you had a pair of shiny white shoes. At least that's what I grew up with, and my mom. And then a purse to match, or a bag.
Right.
And they were never comfortable. Those shoes were never comfortable. But I can remember my mom saying things like, proper ladies, proper women.
Yeah.
Make this change, and we acknowledge that we're in a different time of year, so we don't do that. And I honestly, I can't even imagine doing that now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when it changed. But it
changed.
It's like
progressively over a number of decades, I think.
It's like this outward sign that you would be judged.
Right.
If you not being a proper lady, or not being a
right.
Yeah.
So let's bring this back to relationship, because I think that has a lot to do. Because we entered into this with a poem that's saying I can't fit your shoes, you can't fit my shoes. I can't stand in your place. Now, I said earlier, I think the desire to do that, to stand in someone else's shoes, is a good one. I think it's born out of our natural sense of empathy, our desire to see from a different perspective. But there's this element, and I think the poem gets at it really strongly, of humility, where I have to realize, no matter how much I can have empathy for another person, I can try to see from their perspective, I can try to stand in their shoes. I have to have the humility to know that I can't actually do that. And at some level, I have to shut up and listen. I have to say, it's maybe I'm tempted to sum you up. Maybe I'm tempted to say, oh, well, here's your problem. This, all you got to do is this, or whatever it is. But I can't do that. And humility and respect for another human being is what prevents me from doing that. That's a key piece of a good, healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm. I think it becomes harder the more you know the person, too.
Yeah, sure.
When you, with your spouse, for example, or a partner, if you have spent more than half your life with this person, you think you have them pretty well summed up.
Yeah.
Where we still are in a place where we need to step back and...
Well, the trees are falling. Did you hear that? Wow. That's just a critter.
Just a critter.
Just a critter.
A little bear's going to come
Yeah, a little
out.
bear. That'd be cool. That'd be a sweet episode.
Would be.
We'd use the bear as a third thing.
as we're running, and hopefully
okay.
I have shoes on. I can run.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can outrun the bear. It only matters if you can outrun the other person. That's what matters, because the other guy gets eaten and you get away.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh no. That train left the station.
I know, it left the station. Yeah, I know what it was. So even though you might know a person really, really well,
Yeah.
you don't know everything about who they are. You don't know exactly what they're feeling or thinking in that moment. And so it is, you mentioned the importance of shutting up or closing, just opening up your ears for a while and just listening before offering something back.
Well, the cool thing from a relationship point of view is that that's also what enables you to have a relationship that goes for 50, 60 years. Because if we actually literally got to the place where we just knew everything, there's nothing new to know about this other person, then how boring and horrible would that be? That's, we know, and we know a lot, and we get a deeper knowledge, but there's always more. There's always more
Right.
to find out.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the joy of relationship.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a friendship or relationship with students or work relationship, family relationship, getting to know a little more about that person or seeing another side of that person that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
That's the joy of that human condition.
Right. It makes me think of this also, and this is I'm going to a little bit of a bird walk here. It makes me think about music, okay, about art, any kind of art, okay. There's this balance between the familiar and the new, okay. If you want to write a good song, for instance, okay, you don't put out sounds and noise that no one can recognize. You give them the familiar. You start with the familiar. In fact, you repeat it. You repeat they have a relationship with it. They've heard this musical theme. You repeat it, but you repeat it and vary, repeat and vary. And so I think relationships are that way too. Part of what draws us in is the familiar, okay? It's wonderful to have to connect on a deep level, to say, oh, wow, this person really sees things the way I do. But then what keeps it and sustains it is the fact that we also find out, oh, hey, we see it differently as well. It's that combination of both, the familiar and the new, the fresh.
That idea of being comfortable, or how do we word it in courage work? The charge and the safety or the comfort.
Yeah, you're safe, but it's charged with some...
Bound. You're bounded, you're coming together in this little comfortable space, but there's a charge to it because you never know how a person is going to internalize something.
Kind of like these episodes.
Yeah.
We kind of have, like a trajectory we're taking, but who knows what'll happen? A bear could come down out of the mountains and just devour. What would that be like? Wow. That'd be our last episode, I think.
That's why I always wear comfortable shoes.
That's right. That's right. So
run.
you can outrun me. What I'd like to do then, wonderful. That's our third thing. I'd like to move on to an article that I think is really good. And once again, this is from I spent some time with it's a magazine called The New Social Worker. We're going to include the links to the poem and to this article as well. But I think for teachers, for educators, and we've already said that this is not just a podcast for teachers only. This is for human beings. We left out orangutans, but this is for human beings, and but I think the area of social work has a whole lot to teach us as educators, and there's a lot of interaction I think among social workers and educators. This article is called "The Importance of Human Relationships," and we'll put this up on the screen for you. It's a really nice visual image here at the first. I've struggled with that and figuring out what that exactly means. You've got two trees. They're shaped like heads, but then the green leaves are growing in a way that the two fit together as puzzle pieces, which is kind of a nice. I'm going to have to think about that more, and that's not really. That would be like another third thing if we wanted
It
to.
would, but it's a cool one. I think it sort of gives you the sense of being completed by another.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I sometimes can go along with.
Yeah,
Sometimes feel like
it's cool.
yeah.
Like somebody, you are my living leaves, and I'm your dead branches. That's, I don't know what that means.
Right.
Anyway, the importance of human relationships, and this is written by John Talebreza-May, Ph.D., and he is a social worker. This is it's a very short, really short. You can read this in about 10 minutes. I'm going to read some chunks of it, but you can read this on your own. Oh, there's one of those trucks with Jake brakes. If you hear that, I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but anyway, we'll let him pass. So the first thing, though, I wanted to, and we'll pull this up, the little section up on the screen, because he's talking about the importance of human relationships in his work. And he says, when I trust myself, relax, and enjoy the company I keep, the job gets done. I learned this early in my career when interviewing an elderly Hispanic couple. I practiced the technique of cognitive behavioral therapy with perfection, but alas, I forgot to attend to my audience. Those whose personal culture was heavily invested in the importance of human relationships. They left and never came back. And they taught me a lesson vital to helping future clients and teaching future students. Attend to the relationship. Stay in the present moment, and everything else will fall into place. It makes me think about how burdened sometimes we are as educators or as anybody with what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I've got this list of, I've got my lesson plan. I've got all the steps that I'm supposed to take care of. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to have any wasted time. And that's like foremost in my head. And suddenly I'm not attending at all to the relational elements.
Right. You know, people talk about it being wasted time. It is not.
No.
I would suggest that it is the time that we spend on relational kinds of things with our students, with our colleagues, with our family.
Yeah.
It's the most important. It's the most memorable.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that shapes us.
Yeah.
You know, that quote about, I may not remember what you said, but I remember how you made me feel.
Yeah, right.
That's everything.
Everything about relationship. Do you think it's fear that keeps us focused on that to-do list or those techniques instead of the relationship?
Well, certainly. I mean, when you think about, if you shift into education for a moment, it's accountability.
Right.
And your job relies on it.
Yeah.
I think it's expectation, like sometimes when we're working, we work on very relational kinds of things.
Right.
And it could probably look like we're not working sometimes because we're talking about a topic that is considered one of those soft skills.
Yeah.
But I would really challenge that. When I think about my students and my classrooms over the years, the moments that stand out to me and the moments that students come back and talk to me about are those relational moments. Those moments that were a part of, something, we shared something that was incredible. It might have been not a great thing. It might have been a scary thing or a disappointing thing, but it was something that is memorable and it hooks in and it becomes a part of who we are. I feel like sometimes we move towards a task or, if we're working together, like what's our list and can we just check it off and be done?
Right.
And you could do that, but then you lose the joy.
Right.
And
in a way that's turning another human being into a puzzle. It's like I'm just going to take care of the steps, to take care of this. Like his example, of this elderly Hispanic couple coming from a different cultural background than he was, and he had the technique all down, and it just fell flat because he didn't attend to them, the people.
It's about noticing.
Yeah.
too. Noticing what the person that you're with is
Right.
needing in that moment.
Right. Right.
You know, and yeah, there are some times where we have to be task oriented. We
Yeah.
have a deadline. We have
Sure.
something, or even in you know, family relationships. There are sometimes you got to sit down and pay the bills, or you have to, you know, there are things we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, I feel like we need to be paying attention at least,
Yeah.
and noticing if that other person is in a good place, or is
Yeah.
in a place where how we're interacting is appropriate
Yeah.
to where they are.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a sideline thing. I think it's not just like the the gravy on the side, or the icing on the cake. It's actually one of the key things that is so incredibly important. I want to look at another section in here. We'll pull up on the screen. He says, we are born into the world vulnerable, weak, and in need of physical and emotional nurturing. Immediately, we reach out to secure our first relationships. These original attachments are key to shaping a lifetime of connections to others. The strength of the original human relationship provides a path into the future, helping to define what is possible. We also leave the world vulnerable and weak, and just as in infancy, we reach out for support from those around us. The level of support we get will often be based on the strength of the relationships we've created throughout our lives. So, I mean, these relationships are not just something on the side. They are the key. I think they're the key driving force in who we are as human beings. I mean, that's why we do science. It's why we do art. It's why we do literature, for connection, for interconnection with other human beings, because we need that from the beginning of our lives to know how this whole human thing works, and we need it for the end of our lives so that we've got the people around us that we can lean on when we become vulnerable once again, you know.
You know, there's a line in here right before the section that you read where it says, we rely on the strength of human relationships to survive and thrive. And I am struck by that for a moment, because I'm thinking about this time of quarantine that we've been in.
Right.
I'm surviving. I'm not thriving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some of the things that I need out of human relationships aren't present right now. I struggle to not be able to give the little kiddos at church a hug right now.
Yeah.
You know, or the older people.
Right.
You know, I see people. I saw your parents this morning,
Yeah.
and I wanted to hug them, and
Yeah.
we can't. There's this
Yeah.
distance. And I think when we are just going through the motions, when we are accomplishing tasks, we're surviving. We're not thriving.
Yeah.
And I think life is about thriving.
Right. Right.
You know,
it is.
it's about having joy, and about, you know, having this sense of enjoying what I'm doing each day,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is. And you can be doing some really dull, you know, boring things, but when you're in relationship with the person you're doing them with, they're not.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think it would it's easy right now in a time like this with the pandemic to feel hopeless. You know, like we can't have relationships because we can't touch, hug, you know, all of that. But those are important. They really are. I mean, but they are also only the exterior part of that. You know, there are other things that we can do, and I think it probably makes those other things that much more important. Because we can't hug, because we can't touch, we need to make sure that we're being, you know, aware and attentive, relationally speaking, to not just to people in our classroom if we're a teacher, but to all the people in our lives. It's going to be that much more important. And I was just thinking about that the other day. You know, I haven't touched several of the people that I love dearly. I haven't touched them at all in months. And I'm thinking, have I really made it clear how strongly connected with them I still feel, and how strongly connected I need to be, despite the fact that we haven't hugged,
Right. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because how do you help? So much is said through a hug.
Right.
When I see the elderly woman at church or something, and I go up and I give her a hug and I talk to her for a little bit, more than just what our interaction is shared there.
Yeah.
It is I've been thinking about you.
Yeah,
I
right.
care about you, and I want you to know that.
Mm-hmm. A couple of more things from the article. He says the years between birth and death, when we grow, learn, create a life, and see our life carried forward through our children or those we touch, are characterized by the same need for interdependence. And that's what we're just really talking about, that he points out it's incredibly important when we're vulnerable at the very beginning of life. I have a brand new grandson, completely vulnerable. And he absolutely needs his mom and dad. He needs his broader family too. He needs his grandma and grandpa. He needs everybody to take care of him. It would be horrible for a brand new vulnerable baby to have adults around who just don't care. It's a horrific thing to think of. End of life. It's a horrific thing to think of with vulnerable elderly folks who maybe are not completely there mentally or just incapable physically to not have caring people around them. But it would be too easy to say, well, that's when it's important. It's important right now in the middle, right in the middle, that we need that interdependence. We need to be reliable and to be able to rely on each other.
I remember as a teacher, I had a student one time who came to me middle of the year who had been they call them closet babies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And completely lacking in everything you were just describing. Literally kept in a closet. And I remember when I would sit and visit with her, talk to her, she didn't have the ability to speak yet because she hadn't even learned language, and she was in 3rd grade. But she would touch my face a lot as I would talk with her. And the speech pathologist shared with me, she's not had lap time.
Yeah.
She doesn't even know what's happening here.
Yeah.
She's just learning to experience that.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And what's beautiful about that is I know there's lots of parenting books, but really, no one sits down and teaches brand new parents exactly what they're supposed to do, but they know anyway. The things that we naturally, as human beings, are drawn to do, to hold that baby, to talk sweet to that baby, to care for that baby, those are exactly the things that baby needs to know how to grow into what they're going to need to be in life. Right. And we know that by virtue of being human beings. It's somehow when we get cut off from that, whether it's by trauma or something else, or drugs, or alcohol, or things like that cut us off from our human being nature, that we're not able to provide that. And so I think becoming aware of the importance of that, and also resting in the idea that you know what, and I tell my daughter this, because as any new parent is, she and her husband are just, oh, should we do this? Should we do that? Should we do?
So hard.
And there's a big part of me that wants to say, you know what, you've got this. You're going to do fine. You're going to do great. Just be who you are, and you're going to be great. And we need to have that confidence. One more little section from the article. He says the best social work students, practitioners, and teachers are not those who are encyclopedic in their knowledge of or flawless in their technique, if there could be such a thing, but those who show that each and every person they meet is the center of the universe at that moment. When we do that, we create and strengthen relationships, and our goals are met. And I think, and I really do indict myself for this, because I recognize this is something I need to work on. I think there are many times when I seem distracted and elsewhere, when I should be letting the other person know, right now, in this moment, you are my focus. And that's something that I'm not getting down on myself. I'm not just, but I recognize that that's something that I have to work on, partly because I am an INFP. I am introverted. And so it is very easy for me to get all in here and to be just, drawn away. But to be able to open up and say, hey, as I am in, and especially if I'm teaching, to make sure that at least to whatever degree I'm capable of, to let my students know that you are what's important right here, right now. You're really important right here.
I love that line about they're the center of your universe in that moment.
Yeah.
What a great thought.
Well,
and every child, every person, but especially children, needs to have that feeling of being the center of the universe at some point.
Yeah.
During the day. And you know what creates that is even something as simple as the eye contact, thinking of your daughter with little baby Fox.
Yeah.
As she's sitting holding him, feeding him, and just the eye contact that happens with that gentle touch. He's the center.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and it's how they grow to be the healthy, wonderful person they are.
Yeah.
And we all still need that, even though we're not, helpless babies any longer. We still need to be able to look into the eyes of another person and have that sense of, I'm the most important person in
this moment. Yeah.
In that moment.
And some of that has to do with also being in the moment, That's valuable for them. It's valuable for me too, to be right here, right now, and not just elsewhere in my head.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
Well,
I really like this.
Yeah, this was great.
Article.
This was great. I think you've got a quote for us, don't you? I'm super excited. We'll pull this up on the screen. We always like to leave you with something to chew on that's helpful.
I actually I hope we can, when we share this, that we can share it with the image as well.
Oh, I've got the image up there on the screen for them right now.
Sorry. Yes, you do.
The magic of editing.
I love the image. It has the two fingerprints, two separate fingerprints overlapping one another.
That's nice.
And I really love what this quote says about that. A great relationship is about two things. First, appreciating the similarities, and second, respecting the differences.
That's really nice.
And I couldn't find an author for that.
It's unknown. Unknown is really famous for a lot of great things, saying a lot of great things.
But I think that that's really an important reminder to us that, being in relationship, we are in relationship with people, and there are similarities between us. There are things that we think the same about.
Yeah.
But then there are these other things that are very different.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the balance between the two.
And the respect. I like the word respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for joining us for another episode. And all the best in your relationships. They're important. They're not just a sideline. They're not just icing on the cake. They're the cake.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.